The year is 100 AD. We are in China under the Great Han Dynasty, an empire that rivals Rome at the other end of the world in its size, its sophistication, and its power. Tens of millions of people live under the rule of the Han Emperor. Silk, invented and jealously guarded by the Chinese, travels westward along the great trade routes toward the distant Roman world, which knows China only as a mysterious land at the edge of the earth. Chinese civilization at this moment is producing paper, sophisticated bureaucracy, advanced ironwork, beautiful art, profound philosophy, and a settled, ordered way of life governed by ancient traditions and the teachings of the great sage Confucius. And in this world, in a great walled compound in one of the empire's cities or on a wealthy country estate, lives a noble family, wealthy, refined, and powerful, surrounded by servants, bound by elaborate rules of family and hierarchy, in a sprawling mansion that is a small world unto itself. Today, we are going to step through the gates of an ancient Chinese mansion and discover what it was really like to live inside one. The architecture, the family, the food, the servants, and the rituals that governed every hour of life in the household of the Han elite. Using advanced AI trained on the archaeology of Han Dynasty dwellings, the remarkable pottery models of houses and figures that the Han buried in their tombs to serve them in the afterlife, the surviving texts on family life and ritual, and the work of historians of ancient China, we have reconstructed life inside the Great Han Mansion. The first thing to understand is that a Chinese mansion was not a single grand building, but an entire walled world. The Chinese mansion was built as a series of courtyards, enclosed by walls and buildings, turned inward away from the outside world. Unlike a Roman or European house that might present a grand face to the street, the Chinese elite home presented mostly blank walls to the outside, and all its life and beauty turned inward, toward a series of open courtyards around which the rooms were arranged. You entered through a gate, often an imposing one whose grandeur signaled the family's status, and passed into the first courtyard. The compound was arranged according to deep principles of order, symmetry, and hierarchy. The buildings were laid out along an axis with the most important rooms, the formal halls for receiving guests and conducting family ceremonies, placed in positions of honor, typically facing south to catch the sun and the auspicious energies that Chinese tradition associated with that direction. The further into the compound you went, through successive gates and courtyards, the more private and the more restricted the spaces became, until you reached the innermost quarters where the family lived. A great mansion might have many courtyards, with halls, living quarters, kitchens, storerooms, servants' quarters, stables, gardens, wells, and even private towers, the whole forming a self-contained community of family and servants behind its protective walls. The buildings themselves were marvels of Chinese architecture. They were built primarily of timber, on a framework of wooden posts and beams, with walls of packed earth, brick, or wood, and roofs of ceramic tile. The Chinese had developed a sophisticated system of timber construction, with elaborate bracket systems supporting the wide, gracefully curved, overhanging eaves that are one of the most distinctive features of Chinese architecture, eaves that protected the walls from rain and the rooms from the harsh summer sun while letting in the lower winter light. The roofs of the wealthy were covered in ceramic tiles, sometimes with decorative ends, and adorned with ornaments. Inside, the rooms were furnished in the style of the age. The Han Chinese at this period generally did not use tall chairs and high tables as later Chinese and as Westerners did. Instead, people sat and knelt on woven mats and low platforms on the floor with low tables and slept on raised platforms. The rooms were decorated with lacquerware, those beautiful, glossy, durable objects of wood coated in many layers of lacquer and often painted in red and black with intricate designs, a Chinese specialty of extraordinary refinement. There were screens, hangings, bronze vessels, ceramics, and, for the wealthy, objects of jade, the stone the Chinese prized above all others, more precious to them than gold. The family that lived in this mansion was organized according to the strict principles of Confucian order. The Chinese household was not a small modern family, but a large, extended, multi-generational clan, ideally with several generations living together under one roof. The grandparents, the sons and their wives, the grandchildren, all together in the great compound. And it was governed by an absolute hierarchy rooted in the teachings of Confucius, which placed the highest value on order, respect, and the proper relationships between people. The core principle was filial piety, the absolute respect and obedience owed by children to their parents and by the young to the old. The father, and above him, the grandfather, was the head of the household with great authority over all its members. The relationships within the family were precisely defined. The son obeyed the father, the wife deferred to the husband, the younger brother yielded to the elder. Everyone had their place, and knowing and keeping one's place was the foundation of a harmonious household and, the Confucians believed, of a harmonious society and empire. The women of the household, the wives and daughters, lived more secluded lives in the inner quarters of the compound, managing the domestic affairs of the household, the weaving, the food, the servants, the raising of children, though a powerful matriarch, especially a respected grandmother, could wield enormous influence within the family. And the great mansion ran on the labor of servants. A wealthy Han household employed and owned numerous servants and, in many cases, slaves, who did the endless work of running the compound. There were cooks laboring in the kitchens, maids attending the family, gatekeepers, grooms for the horses, gardeners, laborers, and entertainers. The famous pottery tomb models that the Han buried with their dead give us an extraordinarily vivid picture of this world. Little ceramic figures of servants cooking, cleaning, farming, and performing, models of the houses, the watchtowers, the granaries, the pig pens, the wells, and the stoves, all made to serve the deceased in the afterlife and, in the process, preserving for us a detailed picture of how the Han actually lived. These models show us the kitchens with their stoves, the servants at their tasks, the entertainers, the animals, the whole bustling life of the great household, frozen in clay for 2,000 years. The food of the Han elite was rich, varied, and sophisticated. The foundation of the diet, as it would remain throughout Chinese history, was grain, millet in the north, rice in the south, steamed or boiled and eaten as the staple of every meal. Around this staple, the wealthy Han household enjoyed a remarkable variety of dishes. There was meat, pork, the favorite, along with dog, mutton, beef, chicken, duck, and game, roasted, stewed, and grilled. There was fish from the rivers and ponds. There were many vegetables, and the all-important soybean in its various forms. There were sauces and seasonings, including fermented sauces that were the ancestors of soy sauce, along with ginger, scallions, and other flavorings that gave Chinese cooking its distinctive character even then. The Han had refined cooking techniques and elaborate table manners, and a great banquet in a noble household was an occasion of considerable ceremony, with many dishes served, with wine made from grain flowing freely, and with entertainment, music played on bells, chimes, drums, flutes, and string instruments, along with dancing, acrobatics, and other performances to delight the guests. The food was served in beautiful lacquer dishes and bronze and ceramic vessels, and the whole banquet was a display of the family's wealth, refinement, and status. And life in the mansion was shaped at every turn by ritual and belief. The Confucian emphasis on proper ritual governed countless aspects of daily life, from how one greeted one's elders to how the family conducted its ceremonies. Central to the life of the household was the veneration of ancestors. The family maintained a shrine to its ancestors, and at regular times made offerings of food and wine to the spirits of the dead, bowing before the ancestral tablets, reaffirming the unbroken chain of the family across the generations, and seeking the blessing and protection of the forebears. The ancestors were not gone. They remained part of the family, watching over it, to be honored and consulted and remembered. The Han also held beliefs about the balancing forces of the universe and about the flow of vital energies, ideas that shaped everything from medicine to the very layout of the house, which was designed to be in harmony with the natural order and the auspicious directions. Education, too, was highly valued among the elite, for this was the great age in which the Chinese began to develop the system of educating and selecting officials based on their mastery of the classic texts, a path by which a learned man could rise to serve the empire, and the sons of a noble family would be educated in the Confucian classics, in writing, and in the refined accomplishments expected of a gentleman. That was life inside an ancient Chinese mansion under the Han Dynasty, 2,000 years ago. A great walled compound of courtyards and graceful tile-roofed halls turned inward away from the world, home to a large extended family bound together by the iron principles of Confucian order and filial piety, run by an army of servants, filled with the beautiful lacquerware and jade and bronze of one of the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth, enlivened by rich banquets and music and dance, and governed at every turn by ritual, hierarchy, and the ever-present veneration of the ancestors. It was a world of refinement, order, and deep tradition, flourishing at the same moment as the Roman Empire on the far side of the world, the two great civilizations of antiquity, each unaware of how much the other resembled it in its grandeur, its wealth, and its sophistication. The timber mansions of the Han have long since vanished, but their image survives, frozen in the little clay models the Han buried with their dead, the houses and servants and animals and towers of a vanished world, preserved in the silence of the tombs, waiting to tell us, 2,000 years later, exactly how the great families of ancient China once lived,